partnering with the world's largest pharmaceutical and innovative biotech companies globally to bring innovative medicines to millions of patients across emerging markets, North America, Europe, and beyond. We've built a legacy of innovation, from pioneering complex drug development of established molecules to creating new innovative medicine like small molecule degraders for cancer patients and in-licensing innovative monoclonal antibodies, bispecific and CAR T-cell therapies.
But our commitment goes beyond medicine. We're dedicated to building a healthier, more sustainable future for all. By leveraging our unique capabilities, we connect partners and patients globally, helping them reach 1.5 billion people who would otherwise lack access. We do whatever it takes to make it happen. Join us in our journey to transform access to innovative medicines.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to begin with our next session. For the next session, we have all our three Chief of the Armed Forces who will be joining us, the Secretary Defense and the Secretary Department of Defense and RDO Chairman DRDO. May I request all of you to please settle down so that we can start with the session right away. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the session on harnessing industry, innovation and partnerships, delivering India's defense vision. I'd like to begin this session by inviting Mr. Arun Ramchandani, Chairman CII National Committee on Defense, to deliver his opening remarks.
Please settle down.
May I once again request the audience to please settle down. We are starting with our session right away.
Please settle down. We'll start. Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi, Chief of the Naval Staff. Air Marshal A.P. Singh, Chief of Air Staff. Sri Rajesh Kumar Singh, Defense Secretary. Lieutenant General Raja Subramani, Vice Chief of the Army Staff. Dr. Samir Kamath, Secretary, Defense R&D and Chairman DRDO. Sri Rajendra Bhatia, President SIDM, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you. This is indeed a very special session coming immediately after Operation Sindoor. On behalf of a grateful nation, I have the honor of extending our sincere compliments and thanks to the Chief of the Naval and Air Staff and the Vice Chief of the Army Staff for their tall leadership during this crisis. By striking at the root of cross-border terrorism, India reinforced its zero-tolerance policy while maintaining its commitment by indigenously produced close-in air defense gun systems, successfully protected India's skies by neutralizing all serial threats. This showcased India's defense superiority and reaffirmed its position as a dominant force in regional military preparedness. This success has brought great pride to the nation. The mission reflects India's unwavering commitment to protecting its people and interest. The Indian industry stands firmly with the government and the armed forces, aligned in purpose and ready to contribute where needed. We appreciate this distinguished panel sparing valuable time to address the industry at the CII Annual Business Summit and for providing guidance to the defense and aerospace industry. As we look towards India at 2047, defense manufacturing is more than a strategic necessity. It's a powerful lever for industrial transformation, high-tech development, employment generation, and global leadership. Moreover, the sector acts as a powerful multiplier across electronics, artificial intelligence, materials, space technology, and cyber infrastructure. This is where Atmanirbharta in defense becomes integral to the larger story of India's economic transformation. Over the past decade, we have seen transformative reforms in the Indian defense industrial sector, such as increased FDI, setting up of defense corridors, the IDEX initiative, and positive indigenization lists. These have enabled record growth in defense production, which has risen from 1.46 trillion rupees in FY25, risen to 1.46 trillion rupees in FY25, a 200% increase since FY15, while exports have soared to over 23,600 crores, driven largely by the private sector. But to go from momentum to mastery, we need to shift gears from incremental progress to systemic transformation. And that's the vision captured in the report India Defence 2047, prepared by CII in partnership with our knowledge partner KPMG, which we will release today. I want to take this moment to sincerely thank KPMG for their rigor and commitment. Commander Gautam Nanda, Associate Partner, KPMG, and the members of the CII's National Committee on Defence, SIDM, and the many experts and stakeholders who have contributed to this effort. This report lays out a clear and actionable roadmap to establish India as a globally competitive, innovation-driven, self-reliant defense manufacturing power by 2047. It rests on three core pillars: Atmanirbhar or self-reliant, Agrani or leading, and Atulya or unparalleled. It outlines 6 priority areas. Number 1, boosting R&D. The report recommends raising defense R&D spends to 10% of the defense budget by 2032 and establishing an overarching national defense technology and innovation framework which links various science, technology, engineering, and innovation initiatives, centers of excellence, and stakeholders to a common strategic and perspective technology plan and national mission. Number 2, developing talent, building a skilled workforce through academic partnerships, global fellowships, and targeting skilling in advanced manufacturing and emerging areas like AI, space, and cyber. Number 3, strengthening production capabilities with incentives, quality standards, and resilient supply chain. Number 4, regulatory reforms that simplify procurement and shifting from a L1 to a quality cum cost-based process. Number 5, strategic partnerships, moving from technology transfer to co-development with global leaders. And finally, number 6, from modern infrastructure to set up advanced testing to digital manufacturing and defense-specific MRO facilities. This is not just a vision for defense manufacturing. It is a vision for national capability. The choices we make today in innovation, collaboration, and policy will determine our strategic autonomy tomorrow. India today is a global contributor to defense capability, innovation, and partnerships. The vision calls for a sharp focus on innovation and R&D. India has global leadership in digital and software, which can be applied to defense R&D across smart munitions, AI-based surveillance, electronic warfare, and autonomous systems. Core to this vision are partnerships, public, private, industry, academia, and international. Co-development with friendly nations is opening new doors for technology access, production sharing, and market expansion. Public sector enterprises and private industry must act as joint stakeholders. The armed forces too are engaging constructively through field trials and design feedback. It is now time to institutionalize such partnerships, give them continuity across leadership transitions, and create joint outcome driven missions. To summarize, this vision document offers a comprehensive roadmap to achieve self reliance, global leadership, and export excellence in defense manufacturing by 2047. Under CII's leadership and through SIDM and the CII National Committee on Defense, we will continue to push boundaries through policy advocacy, capacity building, global engagement, and tech-led collaborations. May I now request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly release the report prepared by the CII National Committee on Defense in partnership with KPMG titled India Defense Vision 2047. I also invite Commander Gautam Nanda, Associate Partner, KPMG, to join us on the dais for this release. I thank you all once again for your presence. We keenly look forward to the insights and perspectives of this distinguished panel. Jai Hind.
May I request all of you to please unwrap the report and release it formally in the front of the audience and for a photo opportunity as well. Thank you everybody. And with the release of the report out of the way, may I now invite Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi, Chief of the Naval Staff, for his special address, please.
Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, Chief of Air Staff, Shri R.K. Singh, Defense Secretary, Dr. Sameer V. Kamath, Secretary DDR&D and Chairman DRDO, Lieutenant General Raja Subramani, Vice Chief of Air Staff, Mr. Sanjeev Puri, President CII, Shri Baba Kalyani, Founder, President of SIDM, Senior Officer Bearers of CII, Excellencies, distinguished members in the audience, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. It is my pleasure to be here in the annual Business Summit of the Confederation of Indian Industry and interact with the transformational leadership of the industry. The CII has been a catalyst in bringing together vision, policy, and enterprise to drive national progress over the years. Starting as the Engineering and Iron Trades Association in 1895, the CII has indeed become a trusted national player, actively shaping India's developmental efforts over the last 130 years. I also want to compliment all partners of India's defense ecosystem on what we have achieved and the galvanizing focus accorded to Make in India by DPSUs, PSUs, MSMEs, and many startups. The success of our indigenous platforms and systems has extended Make in India to Trust in India. And the theme of this year's summit, Building Trust, India First, is most apt and timely. Ladies and gentlemen, we just heard the inspiring inaugural address by Honorable Raksha Mantri in the plenary session. I have no doubts that all of you would have taken note of his vision and expectation. So in the next 9 minutes or so that I have been given, it will be my endeavor to provide you with an overview of what and why we envision in the Navy in terms of harnessing the strength of our industry through collaborations and partnerships. To start with, let me clearly state once again that India was, India is, and India will always be a maritime nation. Not just by design in terms of geography, which all of you are aware, but also by destiny in terms of our future growth. The strategic maritime identity, what I just described, was aptly articulated by our Honorable Raksha Mantri last year. And I quote him, "We were once known as a landlocked country with seashores, but now we can be seen as an island country with land borders," unquote. If we look at India's history, we have a rich maritime past and an unbroken seafaring tradition. Remarkably, all of you are aware, we are the only country in the world with an ocean named after us. Today, India is once again realizing its rich maritime potential, and the apex level vision and policymakers are aware, and their statements are reflective of this broader maritime renaissance. Our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, had made a clarion call of Sagar in 2015, security and growth for all in the region. And building on this legacy over the last 10 years, the vision has been rightly elevated to Mahasagar, or mutual and holistic advancement of security and growth across regions. This year, again in Mauritius. To my mind, this is reflective of India's growing stakes and steadfast conviction that our destiny as a nation lies in reclaiming our oceanic opportunities as the foundation of our future prosperity and global influence. As we look to become the third largest economy in the next few years, the seas will remain our engines for growth. I say this because amongst a plethora of data, I'll just quote two: 95% of India's trade by volume and 88% of our energy comes from the seas. Rest, you can do your math. So India's economy is and will remain dependent upon the seas, and by corollary, our future prosperity will be driven by, at, and from the seas. To safeguard our interests in the oceans and ensuring maritime security, the Indian Navy is committed to modernization through focused capacity building across all 5 domains: surface, subsurface, air, space, and cyber, and that is where all of you come in. So like I said, in building these capacities that I enunciated, our engagement with all of you, the industry, will be a key component in the years ahead. So here in the Indian Navy, we have adopted three mantras of indigenization, innovation, and integration. Firstly, the indigenization is our core priority. It has always been for now more than half a century. We are committed to becoming a fully Atmanirbhar force by 2047. It is a matter of immense pride for us as a nation that India is one of the 6 countries in the world that can design, build, and operate both aircraft carriers and SSBNs at sea. We continue our efforts to be self-resilient and reliant in other critical domains, and we in the Navy will continue to push you, that is you as industry. Innovation is Indian Navy's DNA. Stephen Johnson, in his book, Where Good Ideas Come From, says that, and I quote him, innovation does not come from giving incentives. It comes from creating environments where ideas can connect, unquote. Which is why organizations like Naval Innovation Indigenization Organization, NIIO, that we formed in 2021, work hand in hand with industry to accelerate technology development. We talked about IDEX, and I want to tell you that the IDEX scheme as a technology incubator has seen its allocations jump 3 times in the last 2 years. And finally, the integration, which is the ability to work with the industry to bring together cutting-edge technologies across domains and develop a whole greater than the sum of its parts. Now, this convergence approach platforms different technological capabilities into force multipliers, where artificial intelligence enhances maritime surveillance, where quantum computing enhances naval communication, and where advanced materials revolutionize ship construction. I'm sure you are aware that technology, which is galloping at the speed of thought, is the glue that brings together cutting-edge capabilities for India to protect its interests at sea. To give an understanding of what technologies can do and why they are crucial for us, we have released suitable roadmaps to inform the industry about our requirements. Some of the niche, disruptive, and cutting-edge technologies that elude us today include the propulsion systems on our ships and submarines, aero engines, strategic underwater capability, high-end sensors and weapon systems, hypersonics, and large uncrewed systems, just to name a few. I'm aware that our R&D labs and industry are working at realizing these capabilities at the earliest. You would also be aware that while the nature of warfare has remained the same over centuries, the character of warfare has changed rapidly and continues to do so. Firstly, the lines between war and peace are increasingly blurred. Secondly, the commercial technologies are democratizing warfare, making it available to non-state actors. And finally, we are moving into an era of mass precision, where highly accurate capabilities and in large numbers both remain important for us. We also know that non-traditional threats, such as acts of terror, can quickly spiral into a wider conflagration and conflict. Use of non-contact warfare along with space and cyber domains to wage a conflict with no ceasefires is a reality. In this new paradigm, the industry has to see itself at the front lines of national defense. Our ability to absorb technologies at a rapid pace, translate them into combat capability, build at scale when called upon, what we call surge, and constantly innovate and adapt will define our collective security. So we may not be wrong in saying that national security no longer begins only at borders. It also begins in our R&D labs, in our factories, and in our firewalls. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, the maritime domain shall remain critical and central to our journey towards Viksit Bharat 2047 for the reasons which I mentioned. This has been acknowledged at the highest echelons of the nation. In an atmosphere where India's security is threatened by myriad challenges, the Navy's partnerships and industry is crucial to develop requisite capacities and technologies that would enable us to tackle the challenges of today and tomorrow and safeguard our national maritime interests anytime, anywhere, anyhow. I would once again thank the CII for giving me this opportunity to interact with you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind, Shamno Varuna.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite Dr. Samir V. Kamath, Secretary, Department of Defense R&D and Chairman DRDO to address the gathering, please.
Dignitaries on the dais, dignitaries in the audience, ladies and gentlemen. A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm indeed grateful to CII for inviting me here and giving me an opportunity to address you. At the outset, let me place on record DRDO's appreciation of the efforts of the armed forces in conducting Operation Sindoor very successfully. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Indian industry for helping us in produce the equipment they could use successfully during this operation. I would also like to congratulate the Indian industry for contributing significantly for making India now the fourth largest economy in the world. I think this operation has shown the importance of technology in fighting future wars. As the Chief of Naval Staff mentioned, technological changes are galloping. And you can't afford to fight future wars with past technologies. If you have to win future battles, you have to invest in R&D within the country. Although manufacturing is required, without the ability to design and develop your own systems, you will always have systems which are not the cutting edge systems. It will be one layer below what others have. So time has come where as a nation, we have to dedicate ourselves to R&D and design and development of systems within the country. I know it's a tough task because we are at the moment not the leading R&D nation in the world. So we will have to catch up, and this can be done by using these new emerging technologies
such as AI, quantum technologies which are emerging, we can use these technologies to catch up with the rest of the world. We need to invest more in R&D. Today we invest about 5% of our defense budget on R&D. The Honorable Raksha Mantri has promised us that over the next 5 years, this will increase to 10% of the defense budget gradually. But I also want to use this opportunity to request the Indian industry that they also have to look at investing in R&D. And as Chairman DRDO, I want to assure you that we will partner you, we will work with you closely to make India a leading R&D country where people look to us for the new innovations in defense technologies. And if that happens, our exports will also increase. We will be at a position where our enemies would not want to deal with us in any form of war. And we can then grow economically at a much faster rate with our focus on lifting the country to become a developed country, which is the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister by 2047. So I want to thank CII once again for calling me, and I wish this annual business summit of the CII all the success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We now have with us Shri Rajesh Kumar Singh, Defense Secretary, Government of India. May I invite him to please deliver his special address.
Shri Arun Ramchandani, Chairman, CII National Committee on Defense, Dr. Samir Kamath, Secretary and DRDO Chairperson, Lieutenant General N.S. Raju Subramani, Vice Chief of the Army Staff, Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, Chief of the Air Staff, Rajinder Singh Bhatia ji, President of SIDM, Shri Chandrajit Banerjee, Shri Sanjeev Puri, Shri Baba Kalyani, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by saying that I think this is my third visit to the CII's annual sessions of this type, and in my previous avatar as Secretary DPIIT, I used to spend most of my time talking about ease of doing business. I thought this time I'll talk about something else, but then I realized that actually the topic has to remain the same, because when it comes to the private industry in defense, ease of doing business remains an overwhelming sort of issue for all of you. I'll talk about that a little more in detail later, but let me start by saying a few words about Operation Sindoor. I think what we did through this operation is we trampled on a lot of red lines, many of them self-imposed, that we had when it came to Pakistan and response to cross-border terrorism sponsored or originating from Pakistan. We used to refuse to cross the LOC. We were worried about hitting their heartland of Punjab. We were worried about hitting their congested areas. All of those red lines we've sort of trampled upon this time. We've made it clear to Pakistan that the era of sponsored cross-border terrorism under the shadow of nuclear blackmail and bluff, as our Honorable Prime Minister mentioned, is over. That terror havens and factories will be struck at their fountainheads, at their sources, and action will not be limited only to the foot soldiers. This is the new normal that Honorable Prime Minister Shri Modi and through the valor of our armed forces we've established. And that is precisely the reason that worries Pakistan, that for the first time, India will not be reacting. When we react, we will decide on the level of escalation and at what point we intend to stop. That is why we calibrated our responses accordingly. Now, coming back to the topic today, what we are discussing is India's defense vision. As you know, it centers increasingly around Atmanirbharta for preserving the strategic autonomy of our country. And it is also linked to the broader issue of Viksit Bharat, of expanding our GDP from the current $4 trillion to $32 trillion by 2047. As all of you are aware, the trend of increasing globalization is now a thing of the past, brought to a halt by geopolitical factors that are linked to the two conflicts in the Middle East and Europe, and the rise of populist nationalism as a broader leadership pattern across the globe. These trends are causing competitive populism and economic protectionism around the world, accompanied by economic fragmentation, the decline of multilateral institutions, and a growing tide of nationalism. Many of the countries who used to lecture India on economic liberalization and the evils of high tariffs and excessive taxation are enthusiastically following that path today. Not only the US, but even in Europe. And Europe is talking the language of Atmanirbharta, which our Honorable Prime Minister first espoused over 10 years back, particularly in the area of defense, as they try to suddenly restore defense allocations and industry and enhance their defense spending. In many ways, we in India are in a good place in the sense that our macroeconomic numbers are robust, and therefore we are in a good place when it comes to this competitive economic and strategic deal making that is going on around the world. Over the last decade, we have seen unparalleled investments led by public investment in both physical and digital infrastructure. We have enhanced our overall public investment to about 3.4% of the GDP from a mere 1.7% of the GDP in 2014. And as a result, even though private investment is lagging behind, actually, the tailwinds triggered by our public investment has ensured that we've kind of retained a trend rate of growth of about 6 to 7% through the last decade. Let me switch back to the specific issue of defense industries in particular. This is a kind of a niche area for many of you, but it overlaps with many other elements of government's industrial and tariff policies, with digitization and cybersecurity, with the startup culture and the innovation culture, with IPR, and how India can become a manufacturing powerhouse based on indigenous design and indigenous technology, as Chairman DRDO just mentioned. Like all of you, when I came to this department about 6 months back, I had the same grouse as all of you. That how is it that we've created a system where protracted procurement procedures and the overwhelming sort of priority to procedures over outcomes leads to decade-long delays in procurement and often create capability gaps for our brave armed forces. As a result, what happened therefore also was that in terms of the allocation to our defense modernization budget also used to remain unspent in many years. We had this odd phenomena of surrendering the limited money that was available, often because of these delays in procurement decision making, particularly the last decade, the lost decade that many of you are aware about. Thankfully, in the last financial year, we have, for the first time in the last 5 years, broken that zinc. We've exhausted our modernization budget, and more importantly, in the last financial year, we signed contracts worth 2 lakh crores, which is double what was the highest number ever achieved, which was about 1 lakh crore in 23. This hopefully will ensure that the pace of modernization of our armed forces will pick up. And if we can sustain this level of utilization, we are also in a better position to approach both the Ministry of Finance and the Finance Commission with request for higher allocations, particularly for the modernization budget for our armed forces. As many of you would be aware, our defense share in GDP has come down over the years to just 1.9%. That's still a significant figure because 1.9% of $4 trillion is quite high compared to, say, 2.5% of about $1 trillion. Nonetheless, to put it very simply, the power of compounded growth on a 4 trillion GDP, I'm sure will be more than adequate to meet our modernization requirements, subject to the absorptive capacity of the MOD in terms of signing contracts and in industry for gearing up to fulfill these contracts. Regarding procurement timelines, MOD has in this current year, which we call the year of reforms, we've already tried to crunch many of these processes. And in other areas also, we'll look to ensure that the private sector gets a level playing field as we shift increasingly from cost-plus procurement models based on nominations largely to public sector enterprises, mostly to competitive bidding for projects, both where both public and private sector companies can compete together. You would have seen that when it comes to shipbuilding and recently for the AMCA project, we are already implementing this approach. And this is critical because increasingly we are an innovation-led, technology-led industrial economy. Mr. Baba Kalyani mentioned that book, Freedom's Forge. He gave it to me a week back, and I quickly read through it. And there were some interesting lessons from that, besides the mind-boggling numbers, lakhs of fighter aircraft, hundreds of submarines. The interesting thing there was that during that period, they managed to create over 100 of what they call prime contractors. The number now has incidentally shrunk down to only 9. And they also ensured that there were literally hundreds of thousands of subcontractors working together to churn out these mind-boggling numbers of defense equipment. They created this vast industrial base in a period of 4 years. Thereafter, interestingly enough, and that is the policy sort of lesson that we learn, after that they switched back. In the 60s and 70s, they decided to stick to a limited number of 9 or 10 prime contractors, limited competition and cost plus procurement from them, which also worked up to a point. But now that is no longer working because now you have so much of technology disruption going around that if you stick to those 9 or 10 companies, you will be left behind in the technological race. And in their case, the one new prime that has come in their country, which is Palantir, is actually a software firm. It's not even a hardware manufacturing firm. I think policymakers around the world are realizing the virtues of reducing barriers to entry, of enhancing competition, of having multiple players, including startups, and generally having a much wider industrial base in a scenario of rapid and disruptive technological changes. Technology disruption is increasingly changing not only the nature of warfare, but it is also perhaps the business of defense industries. And the question is whether we should continue to invest in what could be legacy systems such as manned fighter aircraft and ships, or we should reprioritize towards standoff weapons, cheaper drones and missiles, which increasingly were also the weapons recently used during Operation Sindoor. It has also been argued that this track-driven change in the rules of the game when it comes to warfare means that incumbency may not be an advantage in the face of grassroots innovation by upstart firms. Now, going back to the issue of self-reliance and indigenization, the numbers have been mentioned by Honorable Raksha Mantri in terms of the upsurge in exports and the increase in the domestic value of production of our defense sector. The issue is really that now that we have this fairly large ecosystem of 16,000 MSMEs, about 15 DPSUs, and about 400 odd licensed industrial companies, many of whom would be present here today, how do we turbocharge this ecosystem? The defense industry, and I'm switching back to the subject of ease of doing business. The defense industry is in many ways the last vestige of the license permit Raj that India used to have in other sectors as well. Now, EODB reforms in the country are mainly at the state and local level, but defense is one area where we continue to have industrial licensing under the IDR Act of 51, and all the ills of that licensing regime are there, including delays in licensing. And the licenses are not just in industrial licenses, there are also licenses for exports, for imports. In each of these, as I said, we need to break down entry barriers, support grassroots innovators, and it would be important to think not only in terms of disruptive technologies, but also disruptive reforms in the areas of licensing and ease of doing business. When I was in DPIIT, we increased the licensing period, the tenure of the license from 3 years that it used to be for the arms industry to 18 years. That's one small step, but perhaps we need to go much further. Perhaps we need to introduce the concept of deemed licensing beyond a certain time frame to put accountability on the concerned government departments. We need to focus on shifting from cost-based pricing to competitive bids, including QCBS, to ensure quality. We need to remove legacy aspects such as product reservations for public sector units. We need to slash our procurement timelines by weeding out rigid and redundant procedures. And all of these can lead to genuine broadening and diversification of our industrial base with concurrent benefits in terms of technology innovation, employment generation, wealth creation, higher levels of exports, and increasing hard power and geopolitical clout to go with our status as the world's fourth largest economy. As far as the private sector companies that are gathered here are concerned, I would say only one thing, that I would be striving to improve ease of doing business for you, to create a level playing field for you, and hopefully even bury you under orders. What we need from you is a greater focus on R&D, on private sector capital formation through investments in capital equipment, machinery, and engineering strength. In the longer run, companies which do not have engineering manpower or capital equipment or the willingness to invest in R&D should not even think of entering into the defense domain. It's not a get rich quick scheme, and fly by night operators will not be welcome. If you make those investments in creating a localized manufacturing ecosystem in the country, DoD will support you the whole hog, just as we supported the public sector enterprises in the earlier era. We'll support all sectors of our industry, including private industry in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I now have the honor of inviting Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, Chief of Air Staff, to address this august gathering. Sir.
Esteemed dignitaries on the dais, in the audience, ladies and gentlemen, Jai Hind. मेरे को सुनाई नहीं देता है जय हिंद मेरे बाद एक बारी जय हिंद thank you. So first of all, I must thank GGCII for giving me this opportunity to come here and meet you all. मेरे को एक कॉफी भी प्रॉमिस करी गई थी बट वो मिली नहीं अभी तक एंड मैं पीछे देख रहा हूँ सब लोग कॉफी पी रहे हैं यहाँ बैठ देख रहा एनीवे I must put on record this Operation Sindoor that we've been talking about. It's a national victory. My thanks to each and every one of Indian here. I'm sure every Indian contributed towards this victory. Like it has been said again, that this was an operation which was executed in a very professional manner by everybody. All the agencies, all the forces, we all came together and जब सच साथ होता है तो सब कुछ अपने आप हो जाता है. Since we were looking for, we were taking the path of truth, I think God was with us also in this. As far as the trust is concerned, we've been talking about trust. Actually, there is nothing much left for me to say amongst what was written in by my staff, because everything has already been spoken. I'm very grateful that at least the army didn't get a chance to speak before me. Otherwise, again, I would have landed up speaking the last. So, trust for defense forces, it is intrinsic. Our default setting is trust. And when we say building trust, we don't understand what is building trust. So when we join any force, when we join any group of people, when you join any squadron, it is not built over a period of time. It comes for the first sortie. The very first mission that you're flying, you have to trust each other because your life depends on somebody else. Somebody else's life depends on you. Your one mistake can cause some kind of a failure. And we all work like a chain. We all are, everybody, not just the chief. Even the smallest person in an organization, especially in defense, is like a link in the chain. So everybody has to do their part so that they don't become weak. That particular chain will break from the weak link. So all of us work towards that I am not that weak link because of this chain work. Because of whom the chain will break. So when we talk about, a nation, then all of us in these groups, Army, Navy, Air Force, various agencies, industry, DRDO, all of us are again those links in a bigger chain. And we all have to make sure that that group that I belong to is not the weak group because of which this chain will break. And that is what is trust. That if I am trying to be strong enough not to let this system break, everybody else is also trying equally to be strong enough, to be competent enough in that game, or at least being aware of where the shortcoming lies and improving that system. So building trust is not required with armed forces. I think armed forces, we are born with trust when we're born in the armed forces. But retaining that trust, keeping that trust on, depends on a lot of actions. Obviously, if you see a person is failing you again and again, the trust will break someday. The trust will go down, and we have to keep reinforcing that trust. This Op Sindoor, as it is, like it was told by Chief of Naval Staff, that character of war is changing. Every day we're finding new technologies coming in. Technology is coming in a big way in our warfare now. And Op Sindoor has again given us clear idea of where we are headed and what we need in future. So a lot of work needs to be done in realigning our own thought processes also, which is already going on. And I'm sure since we have been able to come up to the challenge till now, in future also we will be able to deliver the goods as a nation, and we will be able to achieve our objectives. The point that was brought out by Honorable RM as well as Defense Secretary, that the fact that AMCA, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, I'm not calling it what generation, because finally when it comes out, it should be of contemporary generation. But that AMCA has been cleared for even participation by private industry, which is a very big step. And that is the kind of, I think, confidence that the nation has in private industry today. And I'm sure this is going to pave a way to bigger things coming in the future. As far as Indian Air Force is concerned, I know we are a seafaring nation, and we need to be the big naval power. But I think whether it's a land power or naval power, Air Force will always remain. The air power will have to be interesting to both these. Any kind of operations that we do, we can't do it without air power. And I think that has been proved very well during this operations also. So our focus as far as air power is concerned, we need to make sure that, we have to have the capability plus the capacity. This again has been alluded to today. We cannot just talk about producing in India. We need to start designing and developing in India also. And when it comes to producing in numbers, the capacity comes in. So we need to have this trust between the forces and the industry continued. We need to have the communication continued. We need to be open with each other. We need to be very open and forthright with each other so that this relationship doesn't break down anywhere. I'm that pran jaye par vachan na jaye. RM just told today only. I think that is something that we have to do. That एक बारी जो हमने commit किया है, फिर मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता, है वो वाले. I'm not going into numbers. Air Force is trying its best to do maximum possible as far as Make in India is concerned. Make program, IDEX program, the number of orders that have been given to the Indian industry, some of the rules that the government made. I'm not saying that we would have come on this path on our own. There were times when we were always, doubting the Indian industry that it cannot give us the kind of return that we want. It cannot give us the product that we want. And we were looking outward more. But over the last decade plus, I think things have changed quite a bit. A rap on our knuckles has, made us think inward and look inward. And then we realized that, yes, there are a lot of opportunities that we have within India. And now also the current situation in the world has made us realize that Atmanirbharta is the only solution. But we have to be now ready to be future ready. So that is the concern, that yes, I can look at next 10 years, we will have certain more output from the industry, Indian industry. We have from the DRDO. But what is required today is required today. So we need to quickly get our act together, maybe get into some quick Make in India programs so that we can achieve that now ready part of it, while Design in India continues to produce results in the near future or maybe later. And of course, like I said, this war was won by a whole of nation approach. The same approach needs to continue while talking about empowering the defense forces. Actually, it is not just whole of nation approach. It is, we have to be whole of nation mission mode, if I can call it, to make sure that we accelerate and produce results. So, they said your coffee is ready. So I need to hurry up. So I will just tell you 2-3 things what we can do in towards rebuilding the trust or continuing with the trust. One is R&D budget. I think it has very clearly been brought out by everybody that we need to invest more. If I think people from Punjabi community will understand something called Daswant, that we said 10% of our earnings should go back towards the society. So something like that CSR has been started. I think something on those lines we should start, that if I'm earning so much of money should go towards R&D, towards defense of the nation. That every industry has to come up with some plan, and we need to have. Thank you much. We need to have. I think clapping last के लिए छोड़ते हैं, मेरी कॉफी रह जाएगी नहीं तो. Adequate, impetus toward disrupting technology, and also, though it was said very clearly that, incentive doesn't get you people, it is the environment that gets you people. But I think to some extent we need to create some incentive, some good environment so that we get the best people for the job. We are not able to get the best people for the job. People are going outward, they are going and working from other countries. I think we need to retain them here by giving them good payment, good incentive, good work environment, maybe some recognition. Timelines is a big issue. That is where that Vachan part comes in. So once timeline is given, not a single project that I can think of has been completed on time. So this is something where we have to look at. Why should we promise something which cannot be achieved? While signing the contract itself, some of the times we are sure that it is not going to come up. But we just sign the contract. Uske baad dekhenge kya karna. Obviously, then the process gets vitiated. Capacity building, I've already talked about. संयम की बात करी थी RM ने, restraint. So even defense forces have been, keeping this restraint of not calling, a black sheep a black sheep. We've been trying to encourage people, but somewhere it will break down someday. So I'm sure let's stretch the thread, the elastic to that process where it is not breaking down. As far as keeping national interests first, I think we've talked about. And with this now situation where we are going, where we are opening up towards the private industry, I'm just reminded of a quote, something that Winston Churchill has said, and I'm going to quote him. To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered a chance to do something special. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared for that which could have been their finest hour. So my request to you all will be, this is something that can become your finest hour. You have a tap on your shoulder. Please rise to the occasion, come together. If today somebody is manufacturing world-class cars, world-class electronic, world-class equipment in the civil domain, why can't that industry or some of the industry join together and say, we will make world-class military equipment, even if it doesn't give me the profit that I'm looking for? Let's rise together to make this nation a great nation. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. And Jai Hind!
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we will move on to the next session now, and we will have the privilege of listening to the Vice Chief of Army Staff post the next session with Minister Nadda. So request all of you to remain seated. We are going to get started immediately. We will close the session now, and we will continue with it post the next session. The next session is a special plenary session with Shri J.P. Nadda, Honorable Minister for Health and Family Welfare, Chemicals and Fertilizers.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to welcome a leader whose commitment to public welfare, healthcare equity, and national resilience has shaped key pillars of India's development. Shri Jagat Prakash Nadda, Honorable Union Minister.